More than 13 million visits. Almost $865 million in revenue. Roller coasters full. Restaurants busy. Games running. Millions of people spending money. That sounds like a fantastic quarter for an amusement park company. Except Six Flags told investors something much stranger in its second quarter. 2026 results. The company generated roughly $865 million in revenue and still reported a net loss of more than $200 million. Now, the parks themselves were not simply losing money every time somebody walked through the gate. Six Flags also reported more than $240 million of adjusted EBITDA, but that gap is exactly what makes this business so strange. A park can look incredibly successful from the parking lot and still produce uncomfortable economics for the owner. Because the customer sees rides, the owner sees something else. Land, labor, maintenance, insurance, electricity, debt, weather, and a machine that keeps asking for more money before, whether next summer will be better than the last one. So if 13 million people can show up and the numbers can still look ugly, what exactly are you buying when you buy an amusement park? The first answer is simple: not a ticket business. Take one guess. In Six Flags' second quarter 2026 filing, same park admission, spending was about $33.61 per visit. Then came another $29.27 from food, merchandise, games, and other in-park products. Total same-park spending per visit was about $62.88. So almost half of the money came after the guest had already entered. That is the entire business in miniature. The ticket gets them onto the property. The rest of the park monetizes the time they spend there. Lunch, drinks, games, merchandise, premium products. The longer they stay, the more chances you get to turn one visit into several transactions. This means the owner is balancing two questions at the same time. How many people can I get through the gate? And how much can I earn from each one before they leave? Push ticket prices too high and attendance weakens. Discount too aggressively and the park fills with customers who may not spend enough once they are inside. The surprising part is that both strategies can look successful from the outside. A packed park can still be a mediocre business. A slightly less crowded park can be a much better one. And the reason starts before the gates even open. At 9 in the morning, there may not be a single customer inside, but the business is already spending. Rides have been inspected. Maintenance crews have worked. Restaurants are staffed. Security's ready. Buildings are cleaned. Seasonal employees have been hired and trained. The property is consuming money before the first family buys a ticket. Six Flags says in its annual filing that its parks require continuous maintenance and capital expenditure. The company estimates that its current portfolio needs roughly $125 million to $150 million of minimum maintenance and infrastructure capital every year, and that only keeps the existing machine healthy. It does not solve the next problem. Customers get bored. A new roller coaster can dominate the advertising campaign when it opens. A few years later, it is just another ride. The steel still works. The excitement depreciates faster. That is why Six Flags expected total capital expenditures of roughly $400 million to $425 million in 2026. A new attraction is partly a ride. It is also a billboard, hundreds of feet tall. You build it because customers need a reason to return. And this creates the treadmill. Yesterday's capital spending created today's traffic. Today's cash has to help create tomorrow's traffic. Stop spending for too long and the park may look more profitable right before it becomes less interesting. But even if you build the perfect ride, there is still one thing you cannot control: Saturday's weather. It is July. You expected one of the strongest Saturdays of the year. The park is staffed. Food is ready. Everything is open. Then thunderstorms arrive. Thousands of families stay home. That day is gone. You cannot save the empty roller coaster seats and sell them in November. That makes amusement parks similar to hotels and airlines. Unused capacity expires. An empty hotel room disappears at midnight. An empty airline seat disappears when the plane leaves. An empty roller coaster seat disappears every time the train leaves the station. And many regional parks depend heavily on a relatively small number of summer weekends, holidays, and seasonal events. When attendance drops, some costs fall. You sell less food. You need fewer supplies. You can trim staffing around the edges. But the park itself does not become cheaper. The land is still there. Insurance is still there. Maintenance is still there. Debt is still there. This is why attendance changes can hit profits much harder than people expect. When the park is busy, each extra guest moves through infrastructure you already paid for. When the park is quiet, that same infrastructure sits there waiting. That is also why the smartest sale may happen months before the customer ever arrives. The season pass. A one-day customer makes a fresh decision every time. A season pass customer already owns access. That changes the psychology. Instead of asking, "Is this park worth another ticket?" they ask, "What are we doing this weekend?" Now the guest comes back. And every return visit creates another chance to sell food, drinks, games, and merchandise. This is why lower admission revenue per visit is not automatically bad. The owner may accept less ticket revenue on each individual visit if the same customer returns several times and keeps spending inside. There's another advantage. Cash arrives earlier. Regional parks spend heavily before peak summer season. Maintenance, hiring, training, marketing, preparation, advance. Past sales help fund that period before the strongest seasonal cash flow arrives. So the season pass is doing three things at once. It creates loyalty, it increases repeat traffic, and it pulls cash forward. That is already more sophisticated than simply selling rides. But Disney takes this logic much further. Because a regional park wants your Saturday, Disney wants your entire vacation. Disney's fiscal 2025 filing puts its experiences business at more than $36 billion in revenue and roughly $10 billion in operating income. But the important part is where that money came from. Theme park admissions generated roughly $11.7 billion. Resorts and vacations generated roughly $9.2 billion. Parks merchandise, food, and beverage generated roughly $8.5 billion. The entrance ticket is only one layer. A family can sleep in a Disney hotel, eat breakfast on Disney property, enter a Disney park, buy merchandise, eat dinner, return to the hotel, wake up and do it again. Disney is not just monetizing a visitor. It is monetizing the entire trip. Then add intellectual property. A regional operator has to convince you its new roller coaster is exciting. Disney can build an attraction around a character your child already loves. The movie creates the connection. The park monetizes it. The merchandise monetizes it again. The resort keeps the customer inside the system longer. This is why Disney and a regional amusement park can both have roller coasters and still be very different businesses. One sells a day. The other can sell the whole vacation. And once you understand that, another strange idea starts to make sense. A full park can actually be too full. A park is packed. Demand looks incredible. Then every major ride has a 2-hour line. Restaurants are full. Pathways are crowded. The customer paid a lot of money and spent much of the day standing still. Now the owner has a capacity problem. Every ride has a physical limit. Only so many people can move through it per hour. The same is true for restaurants, parking, and pathways. You cannot double capacity overnight. So once demand gets close to the park's physical limits, pricing becomes a way to manage traffic. Higher prices on peak days, lower prices when demand is weaker, premium access for customers willing to pay more for convenience. And suddenly attendance stops being the most important number. Two families walk through the same gate. One buys discounted admission and spends almost nothing else. The other pays peak pricing, buys premium access, eats every meal inside, and leaves with merchandise. You count two families. The income statement sees two completely different customers. That is the real shift. The owner is not trying to maximize bodies. The owner is trying to maximize the value of limited capacity, but raise prices too far and the customer has plenty of other places to spend the same. Saturday, because your biggest competitor may not have a roller coaster at all. Six Flags says this directly in its annual filing. It competes not only with other amusement parks, but with movies, sporting events, restaurants, vacations, and other family entertainment. That tells you what the real product is. Free time. A family gets one weekend. Your park wants it. A baseball game wants it. A restaurant wants it. A short trip wants it. Staying home wants it. That makes location extremely important for a regional park. A global destination can pull customers from thousands of miles away. A regional park depends much more on the population close enough to drive there. Good land near a large metropolitan area becomes part of the economic moat. And building a comparable park next door is difficult. You need land, zoning, capital, years of development. That protects established properties from direct competition. But it does not protect them from customer boredom. You still need the next attraction, which means more capital. And if that capital came from borrowing, eventually the roller coaster business becomes a debt business. At the end of 2025, Six Flags reported roughly $5.2 billion of long-term debt. Its annual filing shows net interest expense of roughly $360 million for the year. For 2026, management expected roughly $320 million to $330 million of cash interest payments. Now put that next to roughly $400 million to $425 million of expected capital spending. This is where the owner starts seeing the business differently from the customer. The customer sees revenue coming in. The owner sees everyone waiting to be paid. Maintenance, new attractions, interest, taxes, working capital, infrastructure. This is why EBITDA is useful but incomplete. A park can produce strong operating earnings and still have enormous claims on its cash. And cutting investment is not an easy escape. Cut too much and free cash flow looks better today. The property looks worse tomorrow. So the owner is trapped between two bad extremes. Spend too aggressively and cash disappears into the park. Spend too little and customers eventually disappear from the park. That is the real capital allocation problem. Not, how much money did we make? But, how much can we take out without damaging the thing that makes the money? And one busy day shows exactly why this matters. Take 100,000 visits. Use Six Flags reported second quarter 2026 per capita numbers. About $33.62 of admission spending per visitor. About $29.27 of in-park spending. Together, roughly $62.89 per visit. Multiply that by 100,000. About $6.3 million. Now lose 10,000 visitors at the same spending rate. Roughly $629,000 disappears. But the park does not become 10% smaller. The coaster still needs inspection. Insurance still exists. The lender still wants interest. Now keep attendance exactly where it is and change only one thing. Get each visitor to spend $5 more. Across roughly 13 million quarterly visits, $5 becomes about $65 million. This is the part that changes how you see the entire business. A drink is small. A parking upgrade is small. A game is small. A premium product is small. Multiply any of them by millions of people, and small turns into enormous. That is why amusement park economics eventually becomes a fight over tiny improvements. Applied to massive traffic. One more visit, one more hour, one more purchase. The property is already built. The question is how productive you can make the traffic moving through it. And sometimes the best answer is not to make the park more productive. It is to stop owning it. Six Flags closed its amusement and water park property in Bowie, Maryland after the 2025 operating season and marketed the property for redevelopment. That decision exposes the difference between being a fan and being an owner. For customers, the park is memories, summer trips, first roller coasters, family traditions. For the owner, it is capital sitting on one piece of land in one market. And capital has alternatives. If another property can earn a better return from the next $100 million, that property gets the investment. If the land underneath a weaker park becomes more valuable than the business operating on top of it, closing the park becomes rational. That is capital allocation. And it may be the most important skill in the entire business. A portfolio operator can move money, invest here, maintain there. Sell this, close that. An independent owner cannot. If your one park has a terrible season, your entire company has a terrible season. If your local market weakens, you cannot move your next coaster to another state. So scale gives you options, but it also gives you debt, complexity, and larger capital commitments. There is no point where the economics become easy. The owner simply gets more levers to pull. And now we can finally answer the question from the beginning. The customer sees a roller coaster. The owner sees capacity. The customer sees a season pass. The owner sees repeat traffic and cash before peak season. The customer sees a 2-hour line. The owner sees a scarce asset that has reached its throughput limit. The customer sees a new ride. The owner sees capital that has to create another cycle of demand. And the customer sees a park they hope will stay forever. The owner has to be willing to close it when the numbers stop working. That is what you are actually buying. A limited amount of capacity that expires every day. Every ride has only so many seats. Every operating day has only so many hours. Every guest has only so much time and money to spend. If a seat leaves empty, you cannot save it for tomorrow. If rain destroys Saturday, you cannot sell Saturday again. So the job is not simply to fill the park. It is to fill it with the right customers. Keep them longer. Make each visit worth more. Bring them back. and then reinvest enough of today's cash to give them a reason to return again. Disney built the extreme version of this machine. A park becomes a resort becomes a vacation becomes an ecosystem. Regional operators play the harder version with shorter stays, weaker pricing power, more weather exposure, and huge fixed infrastructure. And that brings us back to the beginning. More than 13 million visits, almost $865 million in revenue, and still a reported net loss. Because attendance is not the business. Attendance is the raw material. The business is what remains after you turn that traffic into spending and pay for the machine that created the traffic in the first place. So the most valuable product in an amusement park is not the roller coaster. It is not even the ticket. It is the customer, deciding to come back before your last investment has finished paying for itself. If you want more breakdowns of the hidden economics behind businesses everyone thinks they understand, subscribe